Hey guys, this is Mark Hutten with AdultAspergersChat.com, and got an email, and the question reads, why is it that males seem to get diagnosed with Asperger's or high-functioning autism more so than females, and what are the specific traits of females that seem to be different from males? Well, females with Asperger's and high-functioning autism often do present with a unique set of characteristics that can make diagnosing their disorder very difficult. And there's been considerable discussion amongst professionals about the way that females on the spectrum demonstrate their major characteristics. Some of these females have obvious social difficulties, whereas others appear to have excellent skills because they imitate the behaviors of others, often without understanding those behaviors. So in other words, they're behaving in a way that they know is appropriate, but they're not really sure why that is appropriate. And there are many females who don't receive a diagnosis, possibly because compared to males, they have fairly good social skills, particularly when interacting with adults in one-to-one situations. And also their special interests are different, and their clinical presentation is different. Now, there are a few interesting things that do occur in females with Asperger's that don't necessarily manifest in males with the same disorder. One of the interesting things is that due to adopting an alternative persona, women with Asperger's, they may begin to have problems of self-identity and subsequent low self-esteem. So in other words, they have not felt comfortable being themselves because for whatever reason they didn't get the acceptance that they wanted, or they got the rejection that they didn't want, and so they learned how to act like other people or just one or two other people. And so they at some level became that person with respect to personality. But in the process of trying to become someone else, you lose your own identity. And when you lose your own identity, there comes a sense of shame about being your true self. It's like, I cannot really be who I really am, otherwise I won't be accepted, I'll be rejected, ridiculed, maybe even bullied, and all of that contributes to low self-esteem. So one profound characteristic amongst females on the spectrum is they truly have adopted an alternative persona and suffer self-identity problems and low self-esteem as a result. Another thing that occurs frequently amongst females on the autism spectrum is that they spend a lot of time observing and analyzing the social behavior of others in an effort to avoid making any social errors. So they're always on the lookout of, what should I say in this situation? How should I behave in that situation? What kind of mask can I wear for this event? And so all of this planning of how to avoid making any social mistakes is very exhausting. Not only does it create a lot of anxiety when you're worried about presenting yourself as your true self, but as you try to conjure up better ways to behave, better ways to speak, better ways to act that have nothing to do with your own true self, all of that planning and preparing is emotionally exhausting. And so these females often, in their constant observations and analysis of others' behavior in an attempt to copy that behavior, can be very stressful and emotionally exhausting. So the typical woman with Asperger's or high-functioning autism is truly an avid observer of human behavior and tries to decipher what she's supposed to say or do. In fact, it's almost like she's a chameleon. In other words, changing persona according to the situation. She may be overly well-behaved and compliant at school or in the workplace so as to not be noticed or recognized as different. And she will tend to want to stay in the background so that she's not in other people's view. But also she may be vulnerable to, we'll call them peer predators. Since the lady with Asperger's does not really know how to behave in a way that is accepted, she's always kind of guessing, and so in that sense she's very naive, and peer predators or co-workers who are not out for her best interest will notice this naivete and her social immaturity, and in many cases take advantage of that in a bad way. She may become increasingly aware of her social confusion and frequent faux pas the older she gets, and therefore she will probably prefer to be on the periphery of social situations. Also, she may fear that her true self must remain secret because she is, in her mind, defective, and thus she is almost always acting like someone else. Some women on the autism spectrum have an aversion to the traditional concept of femininity. They may have a real intense interest in reading as a form of escaping, especially with fiction. She often doesn't identify with people her own age. It's usually older adults that she gravitates to, somebody that's a little less anxiety-provoking. And oftentimes they suffer social confusion in silence and isolation. In other words, being in public sometimes is just too stressful and exhausting, and so oftentimes staying by oneself and even hibernating in her home or apartment is preferable to any kind of social event. Since she doesn't have a lot of power, or at least doesn't perceive herself as having much power or confidence, she may engage in passive-aggressive behaviors in order to get some semblance of control in her life. She tends to apologize frequently because she really does want to please other people and wants other people to like her. It won't be surprising if she is a real expert on a certain topic. There's many females with Asperger's or high-functioning autism that have gone on to do some incredible things in the engineering world, scientific world, arts, sciences, and so on. And in addition, they're so good at faking it that they actually make very good actresses, because they kind of live in their own little fantasy imaginary world anyway, so it comes very easy for them to play a role where they're going to be pretending to be somebody else because they're an expert at that at this point, because they've been playing the role of another person their entire life. They tend to be very good at art. They're very much a visual thinker. Most of them do not like social chit-chat though. They tend to enjoy solitude, and they often have difficulty managing their feelings. Most notably, they do tend to suffer from more than their fair share of depression and anxiety. So it's a mixed bag with females on the autism spectrum. Some of these traits that I just talked about do cross over into traits exhibited by males, but the ones that we just talked about today are most often exhibited by females. If you have any questions, click on the link below this video. I'll be glad to hear from you. Thanks. Have a great day. This is Mark Hutten with AdultAspergersChat.com.